The way I've always thought of it, I mean, this is my finance and accounting background. The interest rate's a distraction. That's obviously a component to financing, and it's going to be a component to what your ending cash flow is. But if you can make a deal pencil out so that it still cash flows, it doesn't really matter what the interest rate is. I mean, take in the accurate interest rate, build it as an assumption in your model, but you just need to find a deal that either has you're buying it under market, so there's more equity day one. There's strong value add potential, so maybe it doesn't cash flow day one, but with your expertise or partnering with somebody that has the expertise, you can get it to a stabilization point where it does cash flow.
What's up, all my real estate peeps? My name is Brian Lucier, and I'm your host of the Why Not Real Estate podcast. And I'd like to introduce you and welcome you to our platform where we dive into real estate and rental properties. And in my opinion, multifamily real estate, which is the best investing asset class above all other asset classes. Well, today we have a special treat for you. It's my honor and privilege to have one of my colleagues and one of my clients, a fellow real estate investor in the multifamily apartment building space, one of the founding partners of an up-and-coming real estate company, commercial real estate investment space, Mr. Ryan Emrich of Blue Canyon Equity Partners. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Just curious, where on earth are you today?
So right now I'm in Wakefield, Massachusetts. So as of late, I've been spending my time, you may have seen on social media, I split my time between Denver, Colorado and Boston, Massachusetts. But as of the last few weeks, I've been in the Boston area. And Wakefield is where I currently reside.
And you are an avid skier, so Colorado.
I am an avid skier. I've been getting a lot better, especially skiing out in the Rockies. It's definitely fine-tuned and honed in my skills. But I've only been skiing 7 years or so I'm certainly not as good as the people my age who have been skiing since they were like 3 years old. But I think I hold up.
Yeah, I've seen some of the posts and everything. It's like, oh, I got to get this guy on the show. And then, I connected the dots. Your partners with Matt, and we deal mostly with Matt, who's the asset manager through our management company. But we're not going to go down that slope right now. So, yeah, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just jump in and get the interview started. And if you have anything you want to add, be my guest.
Sounds great to me.
So, I know right now you're in real estate. You're pulling down some nice properties, some commercial properties. You're partnering with deals. You're doing syndications. You're a roller. You're closing stuff. You're doing a good job. But I want to backtrack in time a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and what you used to do before you became a real estate investor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everybody usually has an interesting story when they say how they found real estate. Some people maybe were born for it. I would not say I was born for it. I have a background in accounting and finance. So I studied accounting in college. I was very fortunate that my public high school growing up in North Reading, Massachusetts, they offered accounting and finance and business classes, which I excelled in. So I studied accounting, and then I went into public accounting. And real estate at that point was not on my radar whatsoever. I mean, I had known family acquaintances and friends or like family friends that had invested in real estate a little bit, but there was not like a real estate mogul in my family or anything like that. So I did public accounting for a few years and then got my CPA license. From there, I went to work at a tech company in their finance department where I was doing finance analysis, financial reporting. So I was definitely getting into the weeds with numbers and spreadsheets, which has proven to be valuable when it comes to analyzing real estate deals. But it really wasn't until about 2018 I was starting to explore more entrepreneurial endeavors. And I kind of knew from college that I wanted to do something that was a bit more hands-on. I didn't necessarily want to work for a company the rest of my life, but I wasn't really familiar with terms like financial freedom or being your own landlord and stuff like that. So I started talking with a friend, an acquaintance of mine that I worked at a public accounting firm with, and we were talking about brainstorming some ideas. And one of the things I wanted to do was food and beverage franchises. So go in as a franchisee into a proven concept and effectively invest into a business, but you get to be the franchise owner of a franchise location. So something like a Firehouse Subs or Crumble Cookies is kind of one of the hotter, newer franchises out there rather. So I was talking to him about that. At the same time, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was a recommendation from my mom's contractor because she was in the middle of rehabbing a kitchen. So that sprinkled a little real estate buzz in my ear. And then he and my being my friend and I talking, he was also interested in real estate and he had read a couple of books published by Bigger Pockets. And so I started reading a couple of those. And honestly, it was a matter of a few weeks. I had just started scheduling showings for multifamily properties around my neighborhood at the time. And at that time, I was living in Medford, Massachusetts. I didn't really understand what pockets and neighborhoods might cash flow versus others, especially going in wanting to use a low down payment loan product like an FHA 3.5% type of loan product. So that's where it kind of all started. It was about September or October 2018, and that's where we made the decision to start looking at properties.
So like 5 years.
September 2018 is when it started, but we didn't acquire our first property until April of 2019. So it's been about four and a half years. Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
that's
it's
fast.
it's fast. I will say, I think I wish I would have grown faster. I've grown a lot in the last couple of years, especially, and I have to credit that to networking. I wasn't really networking at real estate meetups the first 2 years of investing. I was kind of using my partner as a crutch, and he and I were bouncing ideas off of each other. He and I were kind of reading. And granted, it was, the first year we purchased our property, and then a year later we were in the middle of COVID. But after he and I kind of had a falling out and disagreement, I decided to go my own way. I started going to real estate networking events, and that's where I was able to meet Matt Davis, which is one of my partners, as well as John Marchese. So it really opened doors to new opportunities for me, and that certainly catapulted me. And I give a ton of credit to where I am today and the progress that I've been making.
So if I'm hearing this back, it wasn't till maybe 2018 that real estate actually came onto the horizon. When you were growing up, maybe not real estate, but it sounds like your parents were entrepreneurial and they probably put that bug in your ear.
So my father went to Bentley University, which maybe was Bentley College at the time. So he kind of had a business and accounting background as well. But his career ended up being in more of the technology space. He worked at Mass General Hospital doing information systems type of work. And my mother did the same thing. So they're smart people. They're well educated, but I wouldn't necessarily consider them entrepreneurs. And they weren't pushing me toward that direction. They weren't saying, "Oh, you need to go start your own business." They just wanted me to. They were looking out for my interests, and I say we were solid middle class family. So the plan for me was always kind of from childhood to graduate high school and then go to college and study something. Fortunately for me, I think I chose a subject that had a lot of value to it, which from accounting and financial reporting, those I think are sometimes considered the language of business. And it's definitely helped with, as I said before, modeling out assumptions, projecting cash flows, underwriting deals, and then organizing all that and keeping track of it so that you can provide accurate, timely financial snapshots to your investing partners or to investors that might be in the deal passively but still want to be abreast of what's going on.
So when did that having a job and you liked your job, it was challenging and all that. What was that spark? What was that moment that changed in your head? Say, hey, wait, maybe I could have my own business, or all this stuff really is interesting, makes sense. I wonder what it would look like and why not do real estate? What was that moment? What was that spark?
I mean, I definitely need to give some credit to the profession I chose right out of college, which is public accounting. And that's known for being a very unforgiving industry. It's an entry level job. You're working long hours, 60, sometimes 70 plus hours, depending on the firm that you're with. The pay is decent, but it's not stellar. And you're certainly not getting variable pay. It's not like the harder you work, the more money you're necessarily earning. And so I think that experience just made me it certainly put my mind in a perspective that, okay, if I'm going to be working hard and providing value to someone or an entity, why can't it be myself in some capacity? And then that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to quit my job and just go all into this, but maybe start thinking about some side hustles or opportunities that I can do on the side while I'm still building my career. And I still always have my kind of finance and accounting career to fall back on if things don't go as planned. But then it was probably once I started talking with my friend. That was in 2018, and where I was saying, okay, I think I want to open a business. I think I want to become franchise owner. Where we started talking about real estate, and then I was reading about all the benefits of real estate and the ways that you can build uh, vast net worth through owning that investment class, real estate. And so that was kind of like the I guess the light that guided me toward this journey. And I never knew from the beginning of it. I wasn't like, oh, I want to be a wholesaler, or I want to be a commercial multifamily real estate investor. For me, I was just kind of like, okay, small multifamily, it's very attainable. There's a lot of loan products out there where I can get into it. I don't need a lot of money to start. It's it's manageable. And so that's where we started. That's where I started. And from there, it was just networking and reading more and getting comfortable with what it takes to operate a property and stabilize a property. That's where I started to begin to see, okay, there's ways to leverage this knowledge and experience to be able to build my net worth, to be able to improve property values, and then thereby improve my net worth and pull out money and keep the ball rolling, at kind of a snowball effect, so to speak.
Interesting. And so I love hearing people's stories of that moment in time where it just kind of like flips over for them. And if I'm hearing your story correctly, you were exposed to it, you got a little bit more, got a little bit more, and then boom, it was that why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I would say that, there wasn't some super cute or typical story where it was like, oh, my boss, came in one day and yelled at me, and I was like, that's it, I've had enough, and I'm not doing this anymore. It wasn't like that. It was definitely more gradual. But I think, growing up, I was very fortunate to grow up in the community I did, and to grow up in the family that I did. But I say fortunate because there were people that were of lesser economic privilege and those that were of greater economic privilege. So I got to see both ends of the spectrum. And those that were greater economic privilege, I had very fortunate to be able to hang out with them. And so, like my neighbors, for example, down the street, they invited me up to their Lake Winnipesaukee Lake House, and I knew they were investing in real estate. I knew they owned real estate, but it wasn't on my radar that that was what made them wealthy. So it was being able to get exposed to these luxuries of life that I wasn't fully aware of. Like, what does it take to buy a $2 million house? How much money do you need to make, or what's your net worth need to be? So it's just being exposed to those types of things where it's like, okay, you know what? I can see myself wanting that in the future. Like, I don't want necessarily, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I see more for myself than just moving into a Boston suburb and having a family and doing a 9 to 5 until I'm in my 60s, and calling it a day. Very respectable. I don't discredit anybody that chooses that, that's happy with that. But I never really saw that as my path to happiness. So I was very happy that real estate and being presented with real estate opened up a whole new world to
me. And boy, is it a whole new world. I mean, it provided myself, my family, and you can listen to some of our story in some of the other podcasts. I'm a multi-generational real estate investor. So is my wife. She's fourth generation. I'm third generation. So for me, I grew up around all this stuff, and it was always at the dinner table talking about it. My dad was a builder, so that's where we kind of branched off. Not until later in my life did I become more entrepreneurial and look at the property management side of it. It was always develop, sell, develop, sell. So I'm going to spin the dial on the time machine here. We're going to have a little fun. This has turned into a two-pronged question, so I'll give it to you that way. And if you want to run down one prong or the other prong or take both, totally up to you. So someone who might be watching this podcast for the first time, they're going to hear your story. I've heard some of your story, which isn't in the recording yet, but I hope we can get to that. What piece of advice would you give to someone who is starting out in real estate today? And the fork end on that is, what piece of advice would you have given to yourself when you were starting out?
Great question. So I've been thinking kind of last couple of years, like, what are the main components that it takes to be successful in something? And at least in the real estate space. And I kind of boiled it down to 3 items, which I'm sure I'm not the original thinker of this. I'm sure I've heard this somewhere else, and this kind of helped me develop this thought, but it's knowledge, time, and money. And so if you're new, most likely you don't have access to money, a lot of money at least, to acquire real estate. You will have probably a bit of time, but you're not going to have unlimited time, unless you have access to money, which maybe you can have that time. You have the luxury to have that time. But what you can do certainly have control over is the knowledge part. And so any new investor, I would say off the bat, you need to work on becoming at least moderately fluent in the terms involved in the real estate investing world, in how to analyze a deal. You don't have to be an expert at it, but you definitely need to be somewhat fluent in it. And so I'd start with there, educate yourself, which means reading, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and networking. Networking to me, absolutely instrumental to where I've ended up today. As I said, the first 2 years that I was investing in real estate so far, because I've been in this for 4 years now, first 2 years was not networking. And it was slow growth. We acquired a couple properties, but it was pretty stagnant after that. These most recent 2 years, I've been networking, I've been meeting people, I've been asking questions, I've been able to teach others, I've been able to learn from others. And this has allowed me to also get past the most difficult problems and hurdles that I've come across. So deals that I may otherwise have stepped away from in those first 2 years, and now I feel like I have the resources from networking, excuse me, to be able to tackle those, because I've got a good, I guess, toolbox at my disposal, people that I can go to ask for help. So knowledge, educate yourself, and then networking has been totally a big contributor to where I feel I've ended up. And I wish I did that earlier. I wish I did the networking earlier. I'd go so far as to say is you could probably be relatively successful just from the networking. You could educate yourself at the networking events. The reason why I say educating yourself is because you can definitely, you get that kind of hockey stick growth. If you go out there, you start tackling and consuming knowledge and mixing that into your networking events, I think that'll really be the best combination to get you where you want to be. And then from there, I think you really just need to start small and focus. There's a lot of options out there, and you most likely, if you're serious about this, and I say you, but anybody out listening to this, you'll likely be able to be successful in a variety of spaces within the real estate industry. So don't feel like if you pick something today, it's going to be the wrong decision and you'll never be able to switch. But you do need to pick something for now, because it's probably not realistic to be just a well-rounded, fluent person in everything as the goal to start things off. I would say focus on something that you think is attainable. Maybe read a book or two that gives you broad exposure, but then pick a niche or two and try to focus on that, and focus on that for a couple of years, and then take it from there. You can always change and modify as you see fit.
So for someone starting out, they can absolutely work on their knowledge base, because it doesn't hurt to pick up a book and read it.
And it's very low. It's flexible, right? You can consume knowledge at your own pace. It's not like a networking event that's at a certain time. So if you have a busy schedule, very easy to consume knowledge at your own pace. And a lot of it's free for the most part, right? Like, surfing the internet or surfing things on your phone, resources on your phone, listening to podcasts. Those are generally free or nearly free. Books, yeah, there might be a little bit of cost to it, but you could also go to a library, or if you're in school, I'm sure that your school would have resources to be able to access content as well. So,
and then the networking events, I mean, real simple. I mean, when we started out, the internet was not all these meetups and REIs and things that you could just scroll through and pick and choose what you needed. But now anyone who's like opening up a browser today can go into Google and just put in their zip code and find all these different network events. I think I presented at a Pints and Property, and I think that's where I first met you.
That's correct. It was Pints and Properties, was what sort of was formerly known as, and now they're known as Simplified Real Estate Meetup. But yeah, it was a Worcester meetup where you presented, Brian, and that's how I came into know who you were. And it was right around that time that I was also looking to acquire some commercial multifamily buildings. And so when me and my partners identified some off-market opportunities in the Eastern Massachusetts area, you were front of mind as one of the property managers that we wanted to speak to hire to manage the property.
I greatly appreciate that. Nice plug. Thanks.
We greatly appreciate you. You've done a great job. So.
Well, thanks. I will keep doing that, because I'm going to treat your property as it was my own. So we'll go down that rabbit hole at another time. So just to bring it back full circle here, the knowledge, the time, and the money. So someone starting out may not have the money. They will have the time. And, I hear all the time, and I listen to these mentors. I've got my daily mentors I listen to, and they were talking about time. We all have the exact amount of seconds every day, but the different priorities on what we label that time. So if someone was starting out and if this was important to them, okay, put down the remote. You don't need to binge Netflix tonight. Maybe you can read that book or go to a networking event. Work on the knowledge, take your time, work on that network. The money, surprisingly, everyone says money's going to be the hurdle to buy real estate, and it's not necessarily that way, because if you can present a deal that will give a return, most investors want to write a check and get a bigger check back. They don't want to deal with the trash tenant and the toilets. So if you can use your knowledge, use your time to present that to an investor, they will bring the money. And then after you get a couple deals under your belt, you will have your own.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on that. And if I could, I just want to speak to that a little bit, because I've been a long believer in, if you find an excellent real estate deal, you present it to the right people, which this is the whole part about growing your network, because you're not going to know who to present it to, or have people top of mind if you're not networking. But once you find a great deal, you can bring it to those people, and you probably will find the money if it is that great of a deal. And so, for example, we're acquiring, or going to be closing in the next week or so, probably potentially tomorrow, but I think it might get pushed next week. We're going to be acquiring a 65 unit portfolio down in New Bedford, Massachusetts. That was a deal that I found off market, garnered a good relationship with the seller and the seller's property manager. But I knew, in order to close on that, we would need about $2 million. And some people may have $2 million at their disposal. I knew I did not have $2 million at my disposal. So it was the plan from day one that this needed to be an appetizing enough deal where the risks were either low enough or manageable enough that we could bring on other investors to fund the deal. And that's what we did. So we ended up doing a 506B syndication, which allowed us to raise money from limited partners who are passive on the deal, give them and be able to offer them a pretty stellar return, in my opinion, at least a return that they're happy with. And in exchange, we can acquire the deal and manage the deal and get to pay ourselves something for finding it and managing it.
I want to be careful asking these questions because I want to find out more about the deal, but I want to stay
clear of SEC violations. Yes. And I'll do my best. You're welcome to ask a question. If I don't feel comfortable answering it, or maybe I'll dance around it or something.
Sure. And, right off the bat, I'm not going to ask anything about any returns or anything like that. Was it a 506B or 506C?
It was a 506B. So it's specifically friends, family, pre-existing relationships, substitute relationships type of deal.
For our viewers, if you don't know this, I think of it this way: a 506B brother, you could have your friends and family. 506C is commercial. You're coming into an entity with an entity, so you would have to be an accredited investor. The 506C will only allow accredited investors. 506B is open for your friends, family, or there's a lot of spaghetti on that plate that we won't pull apart right now, but that's the big difference there. So this was 65 unit portfolio in Bedford, 506B.
New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is right on the water on the South Coast. And I have to say, when we went down there, I had always kind of heard growing up, New Bedford, Brockton, Taunton to some extent, Fall River certainly. They're kind of rougher areas. And there are pockets that are like that, but I was pleasantly surprised with New Bedford. It has some insanely gorgeous historic charm down there. Cobblestone streets, cafes, breweries, new restaurants going in. It's like the neighborhoods that at least the bulk of this portfolio is in, very much so kind of geared toward the younger, more hipster generations, it seems at least. So I could see myself living down there. So we were very, very happy with this portfolio, and we're excited to close on it.
Yeah, there's so many golden nuggets in what you just said. It's a area that, to use the word, is gentrifying yourself. I don't know your situation, but I do know younger people aren't necessarily looking at buying a home right now. They want the flexibility to rent. So that's great in that area. I think on your social media, these have been some of the pictures I've been seeing the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, you've probably seen some photos of me down there. We were doing due diligence. So we were droning roofs just to make sure there was nothing that we couldn't really see from the ground. We were walking the buildings with a couple contractors to get quotes for turning units. Really just, anything I'm posting is mainly just provide educational content to people, just to let them know what we're up to and the things that we look for when assessing a deal and determining whether or not it makes sense to proceed with it. As you can imagine, just like the bulk of the multifamily stock in New England, some of these buildings were hundreds of years old, some multiple hundreds of years old. I think some of these were built in like the 1800s. So, and there's a lot of history in New Bedford. So we just wanted to make sure, we were getting some solid assets that were foundationally sound. But for everything was good. So the due diligence went very well, and of course that's why we're getting ready to close.
Where I'm going with this, like the building is the building, right? You've done your
Yeah.
due diligence on the building, but the life in the environment around that space, the city, it's not like the New Bedford and Brockton of 20, 30 years ago. This is a new upcoming area. So this is a very exciting combination that you have going on here. So if I can ask, what was the purchase price?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be public record, so I see no reason why this wouldn't be something I can answer. So the purchase price was originally 5.75 million with a $250,000 seller credit baked into it just to address some of the repair items that we noted when we were walking the building. Last minute, we decided to, we noticed something we didn't super love, so we decided to re-engage with the seller. They were fortunately very willing to work with us. So we reduced the price another $80,000 on that deal. So I think the net price was like, well, I should say gross price was $5,670,000. And then with the $250,000 seller credit, I don't do the math off the top of my head, but what's that? 2,420, something like that. 5,420.
Yep, spot on. Your numbers serve you well.
Yeah, I'm usually in a spreadsheet, so it's don't have to do the math in my head.
You were right on that. So, I mean, the deal is the deal, but I'm just going to ask some questions about it. Now, typically, a bank, a lender, a commercial lender is going to have the syndicator or the operator put away reserves on this deal. In your deal that you're purchasing at 5.42 net,
Yep.
are you? I think this was in Brian Murray's book, the dark blue book from the Better Pockets.
The Multifamily Millionaire, Volume 2.
Yes. He talked about the reserves were thrown into the deal, and he didn't even know what that number was until after the closing. It was like $120,000, $150,000, something like that. Are there any potential for a nice surprise at the end of this?
Yeah, so I think I know what you're talking about. So I believe his circumstance in that was he was negotiating. He's a big creative finance guy, and the deal that he was buying at the time, he requested that the seller's mortgage company lender, they had required that the seller at some point in time escrowed away some amount of money to be used toward repairs on the building. And the seller, having owned the building for a long time, kind of forgot about it and wasn't really aware that escrowed money even existed, money that they would have been entitled to had they sold the building. So Brian, as cunning as he was or is, decided to ask for that kind of last minute as a item on the settlement statement that would come back to him. And they said, yeah, okay, whatever. I think it was a larger corporation or something that owned the real estate. They weren't aware of what it was, and maybe to them it was an immaterial amount. But to him, it ended up being a very material amount, such that when he closed on his deal, he had to come to closing with a lot less cash than I think he was expecting. There was no surprises like that for us. The $250,000 sell credit, I'll say, was very nice. That was something nice on the front end because we knew either we could come to closing with less cash, or if the bank decided to escrow that, it was a pool of money that we could tap into when it was time to do cosmetic turns or unit turns, cosmetic updates, any extensive CapEx type of stuff. So nothing as amazing as what Brian found, unfortunately, but it's still a great deal. We're getting at a very good price per unit relative to the market. I think units are generally trading down there around 110,000 a unit. Our net purchase price is about 80,000 a unit. So a lot of wiggle room, and they're in overall in good condition. I'd say good to fair condition. Some of the units need a little love, but nothing too crazy. So
80K unit in this market is fantastic.
Yeah, especially relative to what you can get for rents in that area. I mean, right now we're looking at like a one bedroom will probably go 1,100 to 1,300 depending on how nice it is, and we're buying, like I said, for 80,000 units. So if you think about some of the kind of off the cuff analytics that Brandon Turner and Bigger Pockets community always talk about, that 1% rule. If you're buying at 80,000 a unit, you'd be looking to get 800 in rents to hit the 1% rule. But in our scenario, we're going to be over that. So that's it's a nice little kind of quick acid test, I guess, or litmus test.
So, what type of business plan value add are you looking at for this property? What's on the agenda?
So very clearly, the rents, and maybe not clear to you because I don't know if I've said this yet, but the rents are well beneath market. So the average rents across the portfolio are about $750 per unit, and as I just mentioned, rents in that market should garner 1,100 to 1,300 a unit, depending on the condition and the neighborhood that it's in. So off the bat, we know, okay, there's clear opportunity to increase rent across the portfolio. Of course, some people may not be able to absorb rent increases, so that would likely result in some turnover, but that's also an opportunity for us to get in there and to do cosmetic work to the units to spruce them up and make them more marketable once it's time to put them on the market. So the whole strategy on this has really been kind of like the Burr strategy, which is you buy, you rehab, you rent at market rents, and then down the road we have the option to refinance or to just sell and take that forced appreciation from stabilizing the portfolio, that equity built into it, and return those profits back to ourselves and to the investors. So that is currently the plan. I think we're aiming to get the bulk of the unit turns done within the first couple of years. We're going to sell off a good chunk of the buildings because the way that we're seeing it, there's going to be a good amount of demand for the 3 and the 4 unit size buildings from just kind of like the FHA owner occupied market. So we'll sell a good chunk of those. And then the larger buildings that are capable of producing stronger cash flow, that are going to have that economies of scale, we're going to hold on to those for a little bit and really milk them for the cash flow.
So how many buildings are in this 65 unit?
This is a 12 building portfolio, which I don't know what that comes out to. Maybe it's like about 6 units or so on average.
5.416.
5.4. Okay. So in that 5 to 6 range. So yeah, there's a couple, I said 3 and 4 units, but there's really no 3 unit buildings. There's a couple 4 unit buildings. There's like an 8 unit building, a 9 unit building, 6 unit buildings, and some 5s and 4s sprinkled in there as well.
So I ran really rough numbers on your 750 rent. I put in middle of the road at 1,200, and I just ran the whole deal as 1 bedrooms. You mentioned, I don't know the mix right now.
Sure, yeah.
Need to, but I love hearing these stories. Your value add just on what you're going to do with the rents is going to increase the value of the property close to, if not better than, 300K.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very doable thing. I think rough numbers, you're probably using boosted NOI and cap rates to kind of back into that. Is that how you're thinking of it, or?
I just did the difference on the rent. If you're 11 to 13, I went 1,200. If you're getting 750, there's a spread of 450 based over 45 units. It's 29,000 at a 10 cap would have been.
Yeah. So there is definitely opportunity there. I mean, we realistically think 65 units with applying that math, we think we'll have the ability to get this. And as we said before, we're buying this around like 5.7 million or 5.6 million, something in that range, with seller credits baked in for cosmetic unit turns. But we think this portfolio stabilized if we chose to just hold it for a year or two, stabilize the entire thing, and hold it as an entire portfolio. We think it'd probably be worth somewhere closer to 7.5 to 8 million. So definitely like the opportunity there to capture and force appreciation into the millions definitely exists.
So in today's cap rates, what's a unit going for ish in New Bedford?
Yes. So when we were talking with lenders, they were saying they usually like to underwrite deals down there around 6 to 7 or 6.5 to 7.5%. So to be conservative, we held 8% at first, but then we wanted to be extra conservative because we were originally thinking about a 3 to 5 year hold plan. So because of that, we ended up underwriting at an exit cap rate, the rate that we used the valuation rate that we used, assuming an exit in 5 years, we held at 8.5% just to be conservative. Higher the cap rate, the lower the valuation. So that gets us to around 7.5 to 8 million for a back end valuation.
So I want to flip that around a little bit and look at it. So you're buying at 80 grand a unit. This is an off-market deal, probably did a letter campaign, built a relationship, did all your homework, did what you needed to do, the
Exactly.
relationship. Out on the market right now in New Bedford, if I were to go to Marcus and Millichap,
Yeah.
what is the per door on?
I think you'd see 100 to 110. I think that would be very common. It would depend on the type of portfolio and the neighborhoods that the buildings were in, because there's definitely different tenant bases in different neighborhoods. But I think they would probably present it like an 8 to 10 cap. I think they would try to present it like that to make it look very appealing. I would expect the expenses to be skinny down a little bit, but maybe not. And then, yeah, I think because all day long buildings are trading down there 110 to 120. So I'm just going to assume maybe a larger portfolio, you'd get a little bit of economies and a little bit of a discount there. So I'd say for that reason, 100 to 110 if you went with like a bigger broker to find something like this.
So because you did the homework of finding this deal, you're buying this with market equity on the closing. I don't know if you've looked at this number yet.
Yeah.
1.48 million.
Yeah. So the funny thing is we actually so we had submitted an offer, built a great relationship with the seller, and they actually provided a state ordered appraisal. So the reason why this portfolio is being sold is, I'm very, very sad, it's actually unfortunate, but younger guy who's in his 50s passed away last year. He owned this portfolio. Part of the winding down the estate, they were required to sell the portfolio, and so didn't have an option. They had to sell it. It was just a matter of how do they want to sell it? Do they want to put it on the market? Do they want to have 100 walkthroughs? Do they want to sell each building individually? Do they want to sell the entire portfolio? And that's, I kind of found them at the right time. And we kind of garnered that relationship toward the end of last year and into the beginning of this year. We were invited to walk the portfolio. But anyway, we got a state ordered appraisals that came back at like 6.7 million on the portfolio. So we had very strong reasons to believe on day one we would be walking into, even just looking at the difference between 80 and 100 multiplied times 65. Yeah, we think that there's reason to believe there's some substantial equity in the portfolio, which is why one of our strategies right now is, okay, day one, we've got equity captured in there. So let's try to think about the best way to easily stabilize and then sell off some of the properties so that we can tap into that equity and immediately pay returns, substantial returns back to investors.
Wow. So, I want to be careful asking this question because as
Sure.
In your operating agreement, what are the limited partners? I mean, there's all real estate investing, all investing is risk. You can lose all your money. Let's just say that. But what are the waterfalls, or what type of structure do you have for the LPs on that?
Yeah, I won't say specific returns because I don't remember the rules. By the way, if you ask an SEC, high level. If you ask an SEC attorney, by the way, they would just tell you, "Oh, better to just not say anything than to say something." And but
so what's the split?
It's not necessarily illegal, but specifically what we're doing is we're offering a preferred return. So the limited partners will get a small return minimum before anybody else gets paid, and then everything above and beyond that, there's a split between the limited partners and the general partners. And the limited partners are going to get most of the return. And then us as the general partners, having the ability technically to put no money into the deal, we're still getting a return. So it just kind of depends. If we do put money into the deal, it'll be on the limited partner side. So we still can kind of partake in those limited partner returns. But kind of the point is you could ultimately earn money. You could earn returns having invested nothing into the deal other than your time and knowledge. So
that was a beautiful answer with no numbers.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was good. That was very good. All right. I don't want to keep drilling down that because we're real close to a boundary that I just don't want to cross.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. But.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting deal. I'm going to just double check some of my questions here and make sure we got this. This sounds like probably the best deal you've pulled down in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, this is, and it's of course too soon to tell because I don't know how it's going to play out, but this is a deal I'm very, very proud of. And the other reason I'm proud of it is because specifically when I was making my goals at the end of last year for 2023, one of my goals was to be a general partner in a real estate syndication. And a real estate syndication allows you to take other people's money into a deal as limited partners and do it legally. technically that's a securities offering. If you're going to offer somebody a return and they're not actively involved in the deal as a main investor, then they're passive and you're technically offering a security. Obviously, consult with an attorney. I'm not a real estate securities attorney, but that was my goal for this year. I wanted to put together a deal where the returns made sense. That okay, there's good returns here. We can go seek out a securities attorney, hire them to do all the paperwork for this, and also bring on limited partners as investors and give them offer them what could be a very good return. So I am proud of finding this deal, and it from everything we've seen so far, I think it's going to be a very good deal for everybody involved. But of course, I can't predict the future. Besides that, though, the only other deal right now that I'm also relatively proud of, and this was also an off-market deal, was a 6-unit building I found in about an hour northwest of Boston, Massachusetts, right off the Interstate 495. We acquired a 6-unit apartment building at the beginning of 2022. And that off-market got it at about, what does that come out to? Like, is $530,000 was the net purchase price. So that's $88,000 a unit. And this market generally, I would say, trades closer to like 150,000 a unit. So there was, first off, we were like, why are we getting it at such a good discount? Why does this seller want to sell it? There was an issue with one of the tenants where they weren't paying rent and they were threatening the past landlord. And I said, listen, why don't we work out a situation of cash for keys? You get them out by closing. We'll give them a good chunk of money at closing from your proceeds to help them kind of go on their merry way. We were fortunately able to work something out. So we were able to get this building, got the problem tenant out of there, did some light cosmetic work in each of the units, like maybe like 10K or so to just spruce up the units, paint them, put down some LVP on the floor, slab of granite here and there. And we were able to get the rents on closing day, our rents were at like $3,500 total per month. And we were able to get that up to $8,400, I think we're at right now per month. So substantial increase. And granted, there was a unit, as I said, that was vacant at closing. So that contributed to the smaller number at the beginning. But let's just say that was rented in the condition it was in for market value. That probably would have been about $4,500 total rent there. And now we're at like $8,400 and up. So we've got this in the last year to a really good point. It's cash flowing. We've executed on our business plan. And now we can go re-engage with the bank and say, okay, we've created a lot of value in this property. We'd like to consider a cash out refinance where we can pull some of our equity out, our sweat equity. We've really done a good job there. And so we're working through that right now with a local credit union to see what we can do. I think we're going to be able to get, interest rates have gone up about 2.5% since we originally closed on this building. So there's some math we have to do on the back end to see, okay, the privilege of pulling this cash out at the increased interest rate for this new loan that we're going to be taking out, does it justify the decision to do so? I think it does. We've played around with the numbers. We've done sensitivity analysis on it. But so that's literally like a burr, right? It's buy, we rehab, we rent, we're going through a refinance. And once we pull that money out, that allows us to go put that money and park it into another deal.
Right. So you bought it at 530. What did you have to put down on that?
20% on that one. So I think it was like plus starting reserve. So I think we ended up at like 100,
110, 120.
I think it was like 135,000 total was our like invested capital.
Okay.
140,000 total is where we ended up. Each of the partners, there's 4 partners on this deal. We each contributed 35,000 to it.
So, 135, get the deal done.
Yeah.
Rehab-ish, where
75,000.
75. So 200-ish.
Yep.
Okay. Now here you are 2 years later. 3 years later.
So this deal we bought at the beginning of 2022. So we're only really 1 year, 1.5 years, max. Since we not even, but 1.5 years since we bought this deal.
So the rough numbers here, right? Was 88K a unit, 150 a unit.
Yeah.
This is why I love this stuff.
And we think this will appraise for around 850,000 to 900,000.
Well, so you have an increase of 62,000 per unit within less than a year and a half. And this is 6 units times 6, $372,000.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. And so this is, it's funny because I say funny, but I really am like, maybe that's not the best word for it. But one of my partners, he's a developer and he does condo conversions and rehabs. And one of the rules he likes is the money he has to put into a deal to get the deal acquired and to do the rehab out of pocket. He wants to be able to double that by the end of the transaction. And so if he's doing a 6-month rehab, he has to put 150 down. He wants 150 profit on the back end to make up for his time and tying up his money. So which I guess is technically 100% return on investment. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We put down all in. We were like 200,000 into this, and we forced the appreciation by at least 200,000 on this building. But we don't want to sell it. We want to try to cash out, refinance, keep a little equity in the building, pull a little equity out. But if we needed to, or if we wanted to, yeah, we would absolutely get 100% plus return on our money annualized.
Yeah. Why not? It's coming up with the name for the podcast of why would you not do this?
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are there. We're not making this stuff up. It's not like fairy tale. This is like a deed. It's a real estate. That's why they call it real estate. And, I scratch my head at times why people would not do this. But, I hopefully shows like this information going out there will give someone the courage, give them, that, hey, if Ryan could do it and pull this all down in like 4 or 5 years, yeah, you worked your butt off. Nobody handed you anything. You made that sacrifice. Instead of going to do XYZ, you showed up, you were accountable, you asked the questions, you made the connections, you built the relationships. And now that part's done.
Yeah, absolutely. I see no reason why. It took me 4 years to get to this point, a little over 4 years. I see no reason why somebody else couldn't do it, from knowing nothing about real estate day one to being in a situation where they too could be doing these types of deals, if not bigger and better deals, within 1 to 2 years. You just got to apply yourself and continue to be motivated and hold yourself accountable, just like you're saying.
Well, I'd love to. I'm signing up to get your next property package.
Yes. Oh, we know. You're a friend of mine for engaging with as a property manager.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd love to look at it, and and just, yeah, it just makes so much sense to me. You don't have to sell me on the Kool-Aid here. I've been drinking this stuff, and for me, again, I said at the beginning of the show, I do not see any other investment class, even within real estate, that is going to give you this type of return. I mean, you might hit the lottery on self-storage, or maybe commercial with some type of conversion or something like that. There might be something, but just a track record month after month, year after year, multifamily just proves itself.
Yeah.
Sign me up on multifamily all day long.
Yeah, at least right now, I think there's definitely more demand for quality, nice, spacious housing than there is supply. So the market forces that be. It makes sense right now, for sure.
So you're pulling down some deals when a lot of investors are looking at interest rates saying, oh, no. I'd love to hear your philosophy on why you think that you're okay right now to do this.
Regarding the cash out refinance, or regarding the
interest rates in general. I mean, I talked to so many investors like, oh no, the interest rates went up. It's like, you don't remember when it was 18%.
I don't remember it either, but I know it was at one point. The way I've always thought of it, I mean, this is my finance and accounting background. The interest rate's a distraction. That's obviously a component to financing, and it's going to be a component to what your ending cash flow is. But if you can make a deal pencil out so that it's still cash flows, it doesn't really matter what the interest rate is. I mean, take in the accurate interest rate, build it as an assumption in your model, but you just need to find a deal that either has you're buying it under market, so there's more equity day one. There's strong value add potential, so maybe it doesn't cash flow day one, but with your expertise, or you're partnering with somebody that has the expertise, you can get it to a stabilization point where it does cash flow. So you might have to be a little bit more creative. You might have to be a mortgage broker, put on those, try that hat on, and actually go shop around your own. We make loan request packages, so we put a little blurb together about each deal that we want to get financed or refinanced, and we'll shop it around to local credit unions and banks to try to get the best interest rate we possibly can for ourselves. Now more than ever, it probably makes sense to do that, or to leverage existing relationships with existing lenders to try to get, because even a half what do they call it, like a half a basis point, but I don't know if that's the right term, but like 0.5%, which is maybe 500 basis points. getting that knocked off of your spread. So let's say you go to a lender, they say, okay, our spread is going to be some base index plus 2% or 2.5% or 3%. That's negotiable. So even like going in there and just saying, hey, we don't really like we like you, we like what you guys are offering, but 300 basis points is a little too high for us, or we want to be a little bit lower than that. Is there something, can you work with us on it? Then they sometimes, yeah, they almost always will, especially if it's a bank that you've worked with in the past. So even like the last deal that we just closed on, 2 days ago, we just closed on a 6 unit in Worcester. That loan product, we originally had a spread of 2% on it, and we were able to negotiate down to 1.8%. It's small, but it counts for something. So it's just about seeing. I think you should always try this hard. I think even if interest rates are low, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't be trying to grab all the cash flow you can from every single spot that it exists. But right now, yeah, it warrants being more creative. So that's what we're looking for. That's why I send those off-market letters to try to identify motivated sellers where there's value add potential.
So if I ask 10 investors the same question, I'm going to get 12 different answers. So
absolutely.
I'm going to ask this question to you, and I don't know how you're going to answer it.
Oh,
okay. So in your terms, and there's A, B, and then a hybrid of A, B, and together. Do you like fixed loan terms? Do you like floating loan terms on your interest?
So I like both, but I'll tell you. So I'll tell you what I need. I tell you what I generally look for. It's going to be dependent upon what my stabilization plan is. If this is just a flip, you could probably get away with a variable interest rate, because if interest rates swing 2% higher, it's not going to matter that much if you're going to offload within 6 to 12 months. But if you're saying, okay, no, I want to hold this building, I want to stabilize it over 2 years, and then be in a position to cash out refinance it if I want to, but maybe I don't want to, and maybe I just want to hold on to it, then I'd say you probably want something that's fixed for like 3 to 5 years or 2 to 5 years, something in that range. I will say, and a lot of people probably know this already, even if you're not that familiar with real estate, oftentimes getting a variable rate that fluctuates with the market can get you a lower interest rate off the front end. But of course, it's at the trade-off of, if interest rates go higher, you're not fixed and you're going to have to absorb the increased interest rate payments. So normally the loans that we're looking for, even myself, if I'm looking right now with my sister to buy a multifamily in like the Wakefield, Massachusetts area, or Melrose or Medford, we will probably get a 5-1 arm over a 30-year fixed, because we know we'll get a lower fixed rate for 5 years. And I'm betting that the building will continue to appreciate, that interest rates probably won't be higher than where they are today in 5 years. That's just my opinion, but everybody has their own take on it. And so rather than lock in a higher rate today, I'm going to lock in a lower rate for a shorter period of time, knowing that I'm probably going to need to do a refinance at some point. But that to me is the way to pull out equity in your deals as a real estate investor. It's like, you're going to do all this work, you're going to stabilize, you're going to force appreciation. You've got to get it out somehow. So it's either sell the building or you do a cash out refinance. So this to me is a part of the cycle as a real estate investor. So that's why I'm comfortable with the idea of a rate that's not fixed for 30 years.
So I'm so happy that you answered both. Because you talk to some investors like, oh no, you got to do it this way, or you got to do it that way. But you peeled it back a little bit to say, depending on the strategy, am I going to buy and hold for a long time? Am I going to flip it out? Am I going to, and it makes a difference on how you're going to hold that interest. Let's see, so many good stuff. What questions should I have asked you that I didn't ask you on this interview?
I'll say right now, like, what my current goals are. So from 2022, I decided toward the end of 2022 that I need to start putting myself in a position where I can monetize real estate so that I can start doing this full time. I'm not even sure if you know this. I don't do real estate full time. Up until end of 2022, I had a W-2 job where I was doing finance and accounting full time. And then at the end of 2022 into 2023, I decided, okay, you know what? I want to do contract finance work that will have a little bit more flexibility, so that I could potentially reduce my hours come mid 2023, should I be in a point where I'm starting to monetize real estate in a way that's beneficial to me, so I don't necessarily have to rely on the W-2 income. And so I'm really proud to say I'm kind of at a transition point where I'm rolling off my contract positions. I'm starting to monetize the deals that come to me that aren't a good fit for me or my team. I'm trying to find other people who are willing to buy them, so I can still earn a fee of some sort. I can still earn some type of revenue just for finding somebody else a good deal. So we call that wholesaling. I'll get a property under contract, let's say for $1 million. Maybe it's worth on day one though. There's equity built in for 1.2. I find a buyer who's happy to pay 1.1 for it. So I get the 100,000 spread. They get to win because they're going to walk into a deal with 100,000 equity. I get to win because I get to take some of the equity that was there, but I don't have to actually close on it. I don't have to actually bring money to the table. I don't have to bear the risk myself. So, and I can make money. I haven't done something that's that great of a spread, but we're working up to that. So it's been a great way though for me to earn, tens of thousands of dollars at a time for a deal that I close. And this is money that's helping me survive so that I don't have to do a W-2 job full time. I can do that maybe 20 hours a week, contract type of position where I'm reporting to somebody else. And then I can leverage the real estate business that I've been growing a bit the last couple of years. And hopefully my hope and I'm praying that by the end of this year, I'll be in a situation where I can just do the real estate stuff full time. So that was my goal for 2023. And those are the things I'm trying to work on right now. It's like, okay, if I have a lead over here and I can't do anything with it, and maybe the person wants market value, could I find a retail buyer for this and still make money somehow? Or can I partner with somebody else who maybe has a different vision for this and can make money with it, but maybe I just don't have the skill set necessary to make money, or I didn't see the value in it. So those are the kind of ways I'm trying to think right now to not leave money on the table.
All right, this has been awesome. We've got a few more questions, so I'm gonna roll it along here.
Sure. Do your thing.
So what was your biggest hurdle you had to overcome as a real estate investor? And how did you solve it?
The first biggest hurdle was, do I have enough knowledge to pull the trigger and buy my first deal? And I got over that by partnering with a friend, and we kind of went on this journey together. That with the pairing of seeing a lot of properties, analyzing a lot of deals, and reading and consuming content helped me get comfortable with, okay, you know what, I can do this. If other people out there can do it, if people can be slumlords, I know I can be better than a slumlord. So I'm sure I can also succeed. So that was the first hurdle. The other hurdle has just been, okay, I find a good deal. I don't have the money to nail it, to acquire it. Where can I get money? Do I have to walk away from this deal, or can I find somebody else? And so it's like with New Bedford, we raised some money to be able to acquire that deal. And that's what we're trying to do with future deals, is bring somebody on as a partner with us who maybe has money at their disposal, and they'll put the money in the deal. We'll bring them a good deal, and we can offer them a good return. So those are generally almost always the hurdles for us are the financing side of things. We're more ambitious than what we can take on ourselves, I guess is what it comes down to.
We can talk offline. I've got some tips that'll help.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned it before the show, but I'll just bring it out so it's on the recording here. Was there a book in your investing career that you felt had the biggest impact on you?
The book for me that definitely put a bug in my brain, where that changed my perspective as I was starting to learn about real estate, was Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate. And that's by Brian Murray. And Brian Murray ended up doing a book with Brandon Turner that I think was released last year, which is Multifamily Millionaire Volume 1 and Volume 2. And so that really put into perspective to me, like, okay, you can get an underperforming asset, real estate. You can buy it at a discount that's representative and fair of how it's underperforming. You can stabilize it, make it perform better, just like you would with the business. And then you'll make that more valuable to the next investor, or to an appraiser, or to a lender, next buyer. And you can extract money from it. So you can build net worth, you can build equity, you can pull out some of that equity tax-free through a refinance. And then you can go, or you could sell the building tax-free and go roll all the proceeds into a new building. So that was the book for me that really opened my eyes to that concept. It opened my eyes a little bit to some of the creative financing strategies that come with commercial real estate. And yeah, it's always just sits there. Whenever it's kind of somebody asks that question, especially in the commercial multifamily real estate space, that book for me just does it. And I remember the cover too. It's a black book with red font. It's just like it's stuck in my mind. Do you have it over there?
Here we go.
There it is. There it is. Oh, you got your tags in it too.
Yeah, so. And I got all my tabs. All these tabs are color coded for different content.
No kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I highlight them and I do the tabs, because when I used to highlight the books, I never knew what page it was on.
Yeah, right.
It's in there somewhere, but I don't know where, right?
Right.
So the follow-up, the segue here, the sequel, is there a second book?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate was probably the first one. And then the second book and these are the two books. Like if there was a new investor that's like, hey, I'm thinking of getting into real estate. I don't know what I want to do, or I just want to learn. It's the Multifamily Millionaire, Volume 1 and Volume 2, because Volume 1's looking at the smaller deals, like the owner occupied, eligible residential types of properties, 1 to 4 units. And then the Volume 2, yeah, you got them right there. Oh, this is great that you've got them. And then Volume 2 is giving you the commercial real estate side of things. And it's also examining all these other spaces within the industry. So it does talk about self-storage and warehouses and commercial and single family flipping, wholesaling. There's a lot of avenues to make money. So the books do a good job of covering all of that and giving you an idea of also how to analyze deals, how to determine what a good deal is versus a not so good deal. So
Yeah, and I'm going to hold these up and say something at the same time so the camera catches it. Yeah, so these are the books. Yeah, and they come on audio as well. So if you want to put your toes in the sand and plug in your earpods, your earbuds, you can enjoy that as well. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. This was so good to hear all of your story. And this is just a slice of your story, actually. But yeah, I would like to be more involved in some of the things that you're doing. Your wholesale part of it, that's very interesting. We've just crossed the line at 122 clients. So we've got 122 landlords. If you've got something, they're all looking for deals too.
they are okay.
We might be able to
I was
help.
going to ask you, are any of them looking to sell?
Uh, I'll let you know if they do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
But we definitely have people who are out there wanting to buy.
See, the problem is I know you're a good property manager, so it's very unlikely that your clients will have a distressed building that isn't managed well, that's underperforming, that we could get as a value add deal. I would suspect that that's not going to be the case with a very competent and well oiled property management company as yourself. So, but if they do and there's meat on the bones there and there's some value add, I definitely would be interested. We would definitely be interested.
We usually get called in when there's big problems at a property.
Okay.
This past summer, we took on maybe 4 or 5 different buildings that had a lot of spaghetti on the plate. And after us going in and looking at it and saying, this is what it needs, 2 or 3 of them have just decided to bail and sell the property. You should not buy those properties.
Okay, there's a lot that needs there.
There's a lot going on there.
Okay.
So, we can only do as much as physically, humanly possible. You can't change the neighborhood.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's another good piece of advice. It doesn't matter how good the deal is. A Class D neighborhood is probably just going to be not worth the hassle.
It's
they still get
very, very management intensive.
Yeah.
Your B's, C's, C pluses, bread and butter all day long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next for you and why not real estate?
It's going to be continuing to find off-market leads. I've been stepping up my direct mail campaigns. I think last year I was only doing like 100 to 300 letters a week, and now I'm trying to do like 1,000 a week. So it definitely comes with an increased cost. I'm not, as you can imagine, I'm not writing these myself, and I'm not
right
stuffing letters myself. That's how I started off, but I found services to help out with that. So I'm trying to increase that, because that to me is like the only way I can really think that will increase lead generation right now. And then I'm probably going to start getting back into playing with cold calling. Maybe hire a VA to do it, but I do think that there's something to having like the actual owner on the phone who can make decisions like on the spot. There's just something there that I think has a different feel to it. But cold calling some of the building and asset classes that we're looking for, and then more networking. I'm gonna have some time freeing up, so I'm gonna travel a little bit and I'm gonna network more, because this is becoming my life now. Like I'm a real estate investor, and it's my brand, and I want to make sure that I'm building the brand and getting it out there. So you'll probably see or hear, at least see more posts, but maybe I'll see you at some networking events if you're back up in the area in Massachusetts. But if not, yeah, you'll certainly see more posts by me at networking events, and probably looking at more properties and sharing helpful tips with my followers.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about real estate as a business, no matter where you travel, there is real estate.
Yep. That's true. That's true. And it's funny. I was in Portugal last year, and it's like it would be kind of cool to own a condo here, but in a foreign country, there's a whole way more layers of complexity to the acquisition. I don't know any of the tax laws there. I don't know. I don't speak the language, so if I was going to Airbnb it, there'd be some hurdles there. But yeah, you're totally right. I mean, it's everywhere, and people are becoming millionaires and 100 millionaires and billionaires off of it everywhere as well. So it's definitely a place to where there's money to be made.
Well, wherever you travel, potentially could be a nice tax deduction as well.
That's right. That's right. Maybe I'll make a stop in Aruba to have a strategic meeting with our property manager.
Yeah, well, come on down. We'll be editing in a couple of weeks here.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good.
No, yeah, I'd love to have that because networking for me is a little tough on the island, but I'm okay. I'll make it work. So lastly, Ryan, I want to thank you so much. If you would like our listeners to get in touch with you, how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, the first way is through my Instagram handle and account, which is at Ryan R. Emrich, Emrich. And then my email, if you want to email me directly, is Ryan at Blue Canyon EP, like Equity Partners.com. So Ryan at Blue Canyon EP.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ryan. So I'm going to wrap this up. This is Brian Lucier with another episode of the Why Not Real Estate Podcast with my special guest here today, Ryan Emrich. See you on the next one.
Thank you very much for having me.